That good? Okay. Yesterday we released several body cam footages of an in-custody death with Derek Scott that occurred last year. I wanted to walk through the events of that incident today. Officers had responded to a disturbance call in the 1000 block of Southeast 44th Street. A male subject had been involved in a disturbance and was brandishing a firearm. When the officers arrived on scene, they located the suspect and began approaching him and talking with him. The suspect ran from the officers. They gave chase, and he was taken to the ground in the grass on the side. Officers tried to gain control of the suspect. He began struggling with them. One of the officers straddled his back and was able to handcuff one of his hands. A second officer and later a third officer arrived to assist him gaining control of the suspect. They were able to handcuff the suspect and get his hands under control. They rolled him over and were able to begin searching him, where they located a loaded firearm in his front pants pocket. During this incident, the suspect had stated that he couldn't breathe and at one point appeared to go unconscious, according to one of the officers. Well, the officer immediately got on the radio and called for medical assistance, and they rolled the subject over into a recovery position, allowing for a better opportunity to breathe and relax while they maintained control of the suspect. Once fire and IMSA arrived on the scene, they began to treat the suspect, and as they were trying to load him onto the gurney, he became combative, jumping and kicking at the officers. The suspect was ultimately placed in the ambulance and later became unresponsive. One of our officers got into the ambulance and assisted IMSA by performing CPR. She continued to do this until relieved by IMSA. The suspect was transported to a local hospital, later pronounced deceased. A couple of important things to note during the incident is the subject had mentioned that he was on narcotics at some point and was not cooperative with officers, and he was armed with a loaded handgun during the time of this incident. This case was fully investigated by the Oklahoma City Police Department and handed over to the DA's office. District Attorney David Prater reviewed the case and determined there was no misconduct or inappropriate action on the part of the officers. He cleared them of any criminal wrongdoing, and they were returned to regular duty. The medical examiner's office determined the manner of death was unknown and stated there was no fatal trauma to the body. For more information on their report, you'll have to get a copy from the medical examiner's office. But can I answer any questions at this time?
What's the protocol if a suspect or somebody that someone in custody is saying they cannot breathe? What is the protocol as far as officers and helping them to breathe?
Sure. So specifically in this circumstance, when the suspect began saying that he couldn't breathe, they ended up rolling him over into a recovery position to allow him a better opportunity to breathe. And they monitored his health throughout this incident. And you can hear them narrate on the video that he continued to have a pulse and he continued to be breathing. But that's the main thing, that they're monitoring his health. Is he still in good condition during the incident? And in this case, at the time, he was.
We understand that the suspect may have been asthmatic and that he had asthma medicine on him and that it was asthma medicine at the scene. Did the police see that at all?
I don't have any information whether that's true or not.
The family also says that there's a part of the video that's missing from when he was up and alert, what seemed to be alert, and then he was placed on the gurney with chest compression. Where's that part of it? Is that part of it?
So I've released all of the video that we have on the incident. I'm not aware of any video that contains that. Once IMSA personnel took custody, IMSA and fire, of the suspect, and he was placed in the ambulance, in all likelihood, they would have turned their cameras off. You'll notice when the officer assists IMSA by providing CPR, she does turn her camera back on. I'm not aware of any other video that we have not released.
Is the police department reviewing policy as far as when they're restraining a suspect, sitting on them or putting a knee in the back or sitting on their legs? Is that going, we saw that in the video. Is the department reviewing those policies, or is that a safe way to restrain a suspect?
So the two techniques that you mentioned, when the officer straddled the suspect's back, he was able to do that. That's an academy-taught technique. And you'll notice that in the video, he starts out up on his abdomen area when he's straddling his back, trying to gain control of him. As they gain more control over the suspect and he's handcuffed, that officer is sliding farther down on the suspect's body to his waist and ultimately to his leg, not restricting any of his ability to breathe at that time. One of the other officers places her knee across the subject's shoulder blades, and that's taught in the academy. It provides a reasonable amount of control for the officers while not restricting airflow and offering the least likelihood of injuring a suspect. You have to maintain a certain amount of control, and you want to do it with the least likelihood of injuring the suspect.
What is the notification policy as far as, the family tells us that it took police 4 days to notify her that her son had died?
So I believe a family member was notified, and it may not be the mother or whoever had told you that information. I know the department is reviewing their notification procedures for next of kin for the protocols that we use right now. Those are under review.
So they were notified 4 days after? Not.
I don't know the answer to that.
Do you know why it took a year for the family to be able to review the video?
If I remember correctly, the video was available last year and would have been offered to a family member. I think maybe all of the family did not have the opportunity to see that. Again, that's why they're reviewing the protocols for this.
Well, we understand that the NAACP and Black Lives Matter were able to see the video a long time ago, but not the family.
I believe it was offered to some of the family, and I don't know if it was all of the family.
Could police have done something differently? I know that they were cleared of wrongdoing, but could they have handled this differently?
You know, in reviewing the video myself, I see that the officers are using the academy-taught techniques, the control and defensive tactic techniques that are taught, intended to offer them a reasonable amount of control, and with the least likelihood of injuring a suspect. Once they had any indication that there was any kind of medical distress, they called for medical assistance immediately and began to monitor the subject. So I don't know that there's any more they could have done to monitor the suspect or do everything they could to ensure his health.
What about some of the comments they made? One of the officers, when he said he couldn't breathe, one of the officers said, "I don't care." And then another officer, they all kind of jokingly thought that he was pretending to be unconscious.
Sure, and it's not uncommon for people when you're struggling with them, when you're trying to get them into control, to say, I can't breathe. You hear that frequently. If they're still struggling and they're fighting with you and they're talking with you, it makes you wonder, are they really having difficulty breathing, or are they just trying to get away? But again, when the officers responded to that, their first response was call for medical assistance and monitor the subject's condition. And that's what they did in this circumstance.
But saying "I don't care," is that part of the training?
No, during the heat of a conflict like that, certainly that may be something an officer says. Just understand the officers are fighting with someone at that point.
When they were turning him over, one of the officers took the baton and hit him in the chest several times. Is that part of training, or is that, what was the purpose of
So I don't know if he was striking or if he was using a pressure point, trying to put pressure on there to get a response from the suspect.
In light of what's going on in the country right now with the George Floyd case, will this case be under review again, or is this case pretty much closed as far as?
So a complete investigation was done by the police department, the district attorney's office, and the medical examiner's office. There was no indication of any wrongdoing. Yes, does it come into the spotlight given current events? Absolutely. And if we saw anything that looked concerning or that was outside of protocol, that was criminal or misconduct, we would absolutely do that. But there was no indication of that throughout this investigation.
Multiple times in the video, they referenced that he might be a suspect from a, do we know?
To my knowledge, he was not identified as that suspect. Anyone else?
As far as the new, you guys are reviewing the next of kin policy, what is it now and how will it change? Or do you have any idea how that might change in the future?
So our efforts right now, anytime we have an officer-involved event where a suspect dies, we will conduct our investigation. If there's body cam video, especially that we're going to release to the media, we always try to reach out to the family and give them the opportunity to view the video. We'll also reach out to the officers and let them see the video before it's released to the media. That way they're aware that the media is going to have a copy of the video, and they can tell their families, hey, this is about to come out. And it just gives the family and the officers an opportunity to be prepared for that.
So again, as far as the video goes, you've released all the video, there's no portion that's missing, or?
To my knowledge, we don't have any missing video or any video that we have not released. Anyone else? Well, thank you for coming today. I appreciate your time.